All right, welcome to Reading Skills for First Year Experience. Thank you for joining me for this workshop. My name is James Powell. I'm going to be your instructor for today. I'm very excited to be presenting this material to you and look forward to it. So without further ado, let's jump into reading skills. First of all, the title of this workshop is Reading Skills, Learn and Practice the Essentials, because we're not just going to learn about it, we are going to collectively practice these reading skills. So I need you all to be ready to jump in, to participate, to put things into the chat line, to show me that you are listening and actively participating in what we do. So I think it's going to be a fun session. I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I will find it to be fun, and I hope you do too. Let's get started. Why do we care about reading skills? Well, first of all, reading is connected to note-taking. And if you don't do a great job of reading, you're not going to do a great job of note-taking. So if you think you can just take notes well without understanding the fundamental reading skill behind it, you are mistaken. You must master reading skills first. Now, this is when you're taking notes, for example, in your textbook. You know, we all have to read a lot of material for our classes, but you cannot really effectively take notes if you don't understand what you just read. How many of us have had that experience, right? You read a passage and you don't understand it, and you read it again, and you read it again, and you read it again. It's exhausting because it's hard to really focus when you're not being able to move forward from the text. So I'm hoping to show you some skills and some techniques that will help you to move forward in your reading. Let me back up and say that there are 3 different ways that you can take notes. First is to annotate directly in the book. The second one is to create an outline where you are retyping or rewriting the things that you are summarizing out of the paragraphs and the passages in the book. And the third one would be to do a mind map, which is sort of a free thinking way of doing it, where you have these bubbles that come out of a chapter title, for example. And so you have an idea number 1, an idea number 2, and then you have specifics that come out of those ideas. But today I want to focus on the outline piece, because what we're going to do is summarize things and then put them in an outline format so that we can go back and review them later. So this is what we're focusing on. For each paragraph or section of a text that you read, what I want you to do is figure out a way to learn how to summarize that information. All right, and then over time, as you're reading, for example, the chapter in a textbook, you'll have a bunch of short summaries of different paragraphs and sections, all connected to one another. So thereby creating a wonderful way of having all of the information at your fingertips, ready to go. So how do we summarize? Well, the first thing is you've got to interact with the text. You have to be actively reading. You must stay engaged. Now, probably all of you, or most of you, were part of my workshop a couple of weeks ago, where I talked about time management. One of the skills and techniques I showed you there was how you separate work from play. And this is critical. To be an active reader, you must have a space where your work is not the same as your play, where you've got that separation, where you're focused and able to, to work on your material and work on your studies and work on your reading in a quiet, separate space. And I gave you a lot of other recommendations that all incorporate into what we're doing today as well, but specifically active reading, right? Finding high energy moments, I talked about a few weeks ago. You need to do that to stay engaged. You need to study at the times when you're most ready to do so. You have to do it in a smart way, right? Have it in smaller blocks so that you can focus on the reading for a shorter time and you don't get burnt out or exhausted. Now, specifically, how to summarize. I want you to summarize paragraphs, which is preferred, or you can do larger sections if you need to. I want you to use 3 to 10 words at a maximum 10 words. Try not to go over that because they need to be short and sweet, right? Crisp and clean with no caffeine, like they used to say. It's got to be short and sweet. Finally, one technique that I like to do to stay engaged is to visualize whenever possible. So stay connected to the words, stay connected to material, by visualizing what's happening, all right? Putting a mental image in your head. Now to repeat, today we're only going to do little parts, but for you at home, when you take this home and you apply it, you're going to summarize all the parts of a long text, and that will gradually form the whole. All right, so today we're just going to do pieces, but when you take it home with you, you're going to do it all throughout the entire text of your chapter. So let's dive into it. There are two big ideas you need to learn today. Number one, what is it? What is this passage about? That's the same thing as saying, what's the main idea? Secondarily, you need to ask, where is it going? And that speaks to the flow of ideas. Let's start with number one, the main idea. All it is figuring out what the main idea of a passage is. So we need to, again, not just learn the technique, but we're going to practice together. We're going to practice together. All right, here we go. So the first question is, number one, let's pretend, or let's just say that you're in a class about cinema or cinema appreciation, right? Filmmaking. And you've got this passage that's the beginning of your chapter, and you want to get going. You want to start summarizing the paragraphs. Well, let's give it a try together. I want you to read this passage and come up with your own 3 to 10 word summary and type it in the chat line. Now, I know some of you on your phone, so I am going to read it out loud for your benefit. Here we go. Marguerite Duras' achievement as a filmmaker was marked by refusal to become a professional of the cinema, with all that this implies in terms of prestige, influence, financial backing, and even know-how. Although she made many films, she said that she knows very little about the technology of cinema and that she had no reason to learn any more. I want to remain where I am, on the first grounds of cinema, in the primitive zones. End of passage. So what I want you to do is summarize briefly and quickly. I want you to paraphrase. The word paraphrase means to use your own words. Don't just pick out 6 or 7 words from the passage and just call it a day. No, that's lazy. We're going to work. We're going to figure out how to stitch together the key pieces of this passage using your own words. Again, only 10 in total. So now I want you to go ahead and put in the chat line your 10 words or less summary. Go for it. Go ahead and put it in the chat line. Put in literally your 10-word summary in the chat line. Go ahead and do that now, please. What matters is that you try, not that you get it right or wrong. Just try. All right, go ahead and put in your 10-word summary in the chat line, people. If everybody's with me, give me a thumbs up because I haven't seen anything in the chat line. Let's see some things in the chat line, please. Type up your summary of this passage.
We're typing it. Please give us like a little bit longer. We're trying to type there.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mr. Martin. So we've got a couple things coming through. Takia Roddy says she doesn't care to learn anymore about cinema. Katie Arcos. Okay, great. Yep, good. All right. This girl wanted to be a filmmaker. All right. So if you pay close attention, you'll see that she is a filmmaker. So be careful of that. She is already a filmmaker. But what about her filmmaking is unique in this passage? Think about that. All right. She's comfortable where she's at. Yes. Now we're getting to the idea of what it's about. She didn't want to learn anymore. She was content. Yes, Corey Myers. All right. Duras does not want to further her knowledge about cinema. Yes, Chloe Bryant. You guys are seeing the crux of it, the core of it. She's sticking to what she knows. Yes, Romel Gooden. Okay, good. All right, so let's now, you guys have done a great job again. All that matters is that you tried. That's all that matters. So thank you for trying, everybody who put stuff into the chat line. Now I'm going to show you one example of what a summary might look like. This is one that I wrote. So if you have mastered the skill of reading skills, if you've mastered that ability to summarize, which is what we're doing right now, this might be what you would come up with. Dura wants to stay where she is with her limited film knowledge. Again, it's just an example. This is not the perfect example. It's just an example of what it might look like. So I'm using my own words. I'm staying within 10 words or less, and I'm summarizing all of the ideas in the passage, not just one specific idea, but in general, what is it about? So now let's test for understanding. Let's pretend there was a quiz about this chapter, and it happened to be about this paragraph that you did summarize. What is this passage primarily concerned with? And I will read this for you, for those of you who are on your phones and find it hard to read. I will read it for you, and I want you to put your best answer in the chat line. Is this main idea A, condemning critics' failure to appreciate the work of a particular filmmaker? Is it B, describing the attitude of a particular filmmaker? Is it C, analyzing the style of a particular filmmaker? Is it D, criticizing the technical shortcomings of a particular filmmaker? Or is it E, discussing the content of the works of a particular filmmaker? Go ahead and answer now, please. I'm seeing a lot of B's, a lot of B's. Anybody else have an answer aside from B? Looks like a question mark E, maybe? All right, so the right answer is, in fact, E, describing the attitude of a particular filmmaker. It's about her attitude, right? Her personal approach. It's not about her style. Yes, it talks about technical stuff, but there's no criticizing, so D is not right. And it's not about the content of her works, so E is not right. So B, like boy, is indeed the best answer. Looks like y'all understood how this works. Great job. Let's try another one. Again, practicing is what's important. Trying is what's important, not getting it right. There's no such thing, but keep trying. Before we get into question 2, I want to remind you of what we're doing. We're trying to connect all of these summaries, and the main idea summaries turn into our outline as we're doing note-taking. So if you do this consistently over and over for every section within the chapter of your textbook, for example, at the end of it, you will have maybe 14, 15, 20, 25 brief 10-word summaries of ideas, core ideas in the textbook. And that's what ends up being your chapter 1 summary, right? That's your chapter 1 note-taking, is those 10 core ideas, 15 core ideas of 10 words or less. And that's what it looks like in this outline format. Now we're going to jump into our second attempt, our second exercise. Let's just say that you're taking a class on music. And this is the passage you're given. You're reading an article or you're reading a chapter in your textbook. Here's what you have to read and understand. I need you to summarize in 10 words or less, what is the main idea of this passage? Now, remember what I said about active listening. To stay engaged, sometimes it is helpful to visualize. So as you're reading, you see that this is about jazz. Have you ever been to a jazz club? Maybe you have. If so, visualize yourself. Maybe you haven't, but maybe you've watched a movie where there was jazz music, okay? There was that famous music with Ryan Gosling. That was a Academy Award-winning movie a couple of years ago. Maybe you've seen that movie, or maybe you've seen pictures of people, or maybe you've listened to jazz music. But whatever the case may be, what I want you to do now is to visualize, to close your eyes and imagine yourself in the jazz club. This is a technique to put you immersed into the text. It's a way of highlighting and getting yourself excited about the words on the page, because you can close your eyes and imagine yourself actually there. So again, this is a technique to stay actively reading. I'm going to now go back to the passage. Now I want to read the passage for you, for those of you who are on your phones and find it hard to read it yourself. Then you write up your 10-word summary and put it in the chat line. Here we go. Jazz is the most original aesthetic form to emerge from the United States, but it has not always been the most popular. After the big band era of the 1930s, most jazz was played in small rooms that held about 100 people. The sound systems were usually bad, and the players were considered to be small-time entertainers. If the music was strong enough, however, the audience would quiet down or shout approval when something especially swinging was played. Unlike in the more polished venues found recently, the participation of listeners was not forbidden, and people were not expected to keep absolutely quiet until a song ended. Now come up with your 10-word summary. I've already got one from Jasmine Brown. Jazz was one of the most underappreciated or unappreciated genres of music back in the day, but now is well respected. Very nice. Very nice, Jasmine Brown, because what you've been able to do with that, first of all, it's a little too long, so I want you to practice shortening it, but I like the content of what you've written because you're comparing and contrasting back in the day with now. There is a time lapse that happens in this passage, and that's very important for you to notice. I need other people to contribute here. Let's go. Put in your 10-word summary in the chat line now. So Jasmine Brown, great job. Let's get some more participation. I see there's 82 of you online, so certainly there's more people who can type up something quickly. Let's go. Yes, Ms. Kaylin Handy, jazz hasn't always been the most popular. In today's day, it is appreciated. Wonderful. Jazz was not cherished as it is today. I love how short that is, Alana Holmes. I like it. Great. It's nice and tight, nice and short. Good job. All right. So these are wonderful. Y'all are got a bunch of them, about 20 of them coming in now. Great. Excellent. Jazz was underrated. Now it's acceptable. Good. All right. So now I'm going to give you an example of what we are trying to do, and then I'll show you what I've written. So what we're doing is we're asking what it's about. We're trying to find the central idea. We're trying not to go too much into specifics, although we incorporate some of them in our main idea. You're paraphrasing with your own words, and that's the key of what we're doing here. So now I'll show you an example of what it might look like. It's in the highlighted yellow area. How audiences have reacted to jazz differently over different decades. That might be a good summary, right? Notice I have incorporated a little bit of the details in there, and that's okay to do. Like I talk about audiences, because that's what this is talking about. It's about audience appreciation. So if you didn't put that in your summary, you need to think about how you could incorporate that in the future. Okay, that's the tiny details that, yes, it's a detail, but sometimes it's worthy of being in the main idea because it's about the subject matter. This is about audiences. That's a very important part of this. And then we have that difference in time, which you have correctly identified, most of you. So now let's pretend you actually had a quiz. And in that quiz, you were quizzed about this passage that you read at some point in the chapter or in the article. Can you identify the right answer? I'll read the question possibility, answer choice possibilities for you, for those of you who are on a phone and have a hard time seeing it on the screen. The primary purpose of the passage is to A, describe the critical response to jazz just after the Big Bang era. B, discuss how jazz performers have been affected by their audiences. C, indicate how audience response to jazz has changed over time. D, recount the author's experiences of listening to jazz as a young person. Or E, outline the historical origins of jazz in the early part of the 20th century. Please put in your answer in the chat line now. I'm seeing a lot of answer choice C's. Answer choice C like Charlie. And that is indeed the correct answer. Yes, wonderful. You guys are understanding how to identify the main idea of a passage, possibly with a little help from me. I did give you that idea about the audiences, so that was a gimme, a freebie. If you did not know, or if you did not recognize that part about the audience, you might have been a little bit more tempted by other answer choices like A or E. So again, incorporate that idea of audience. What is the main thing that's being talked about? It's the audience reaction. Excellent. Let's go on to our final passage about main idea. Again, let's do a for instance. So say, for instance, you're taking a class on American history. And so here we have a passage about that I will read to you. I'm beginning now. Alice Fletcher, the Margaret Mead of her day, assisted several American Indian nations that were threatened with removal from their land to the Indian Territory. She helped them in petitioning Congress for legal titles to their farms. When no response came from Washington, she went there herself to present her case. Now, as a reminder, what we're doing is we're trying to identify the main idea of the passage. What did she do in general? I want you to use your own words, and I want you to use maximum of 10 words, and I want you to visualize when possible. And here is a picture from the movie Woman Walks Ahead with Jennifer Chastain as the main actress. So visualize, put yourself in that position of seeing the plains, seeing the Native Americans, seeing how they look and what their needs are, see their struggle and how this woman is taking on the fight. All right, that visualization puts you in the action of the text, makes you engaged in the text, and that's what you want to be. All right, your turn. Give me your 10-word summary. In the chat line, please. Alice took matters into her own hands to do what's right for the Indian people. Thank you, India Williams. Kaylin Handy says, Alice Fletcher strongly advocated for Native Americans. Yes, I like it. Christopher Baldwin, very good. Preserving their land. Yeah, she was an advocate and preserved their land. Very good. All right, a few more. Alice Fletcher's contributions to the advancement of American Indian nations from Joy Harris. Great. Deja Busky. She fought for the rights of Native Americans. Great, good. All right, so let me give you a version of what it could be. She protected Indian nations from removal, helped get legal title. Again, it's not the perfect answer, but it is a good answer. It's one that I've created as my summary, so it's pretty good. You may want to go by that if you were not able to come up with one yourself and kind of learn from what it looks like to have a kind of a good, so to speak, summary. Now we're going to look at a possible question that may come up. Let's pretend there was a quiz. And in that quiz, it asked the following question. According to that statement that we just read, Alice Fletcher attempted to do what? A, imitate the studies of Margaret Mead. B, obtain property rights for American Indians. C, protect the integrity of the Indian Territory. D, become a member of the United States Congress. E, persuade Washington to expand the Indian Territory. All right, hit me up with the chat line. What do you think is the right answer? I'm seeing some B or C. I'm seeing an E. I'm seeing a lot of Bs. So it's like B, C, and E seem to be the most vote getters. Anybody else want to throw out a guess? All right, a few more E's are popping up. So let's talk about B, C, and E. So let me talk about C. Well, let me talk about E. Persuade Washington to expand the Indian Territory. So Washington is synonymous with Congress. So that's good. But expanding the territory, there is no talk of expansion of territory. There's talk of not letting them be removed, but that is not the same as expanding the territory. So expansion is nowhere in the passage. E is incorrect. Let's look at C. Protect the integrity of the Indian Territory. Integrity can mean a lot of things, but mostly it means keeping things together, keeping things whole. There is no talk of breaking up pieces of the territory. There's only the question of who owns it and who's going to live on it. So the integrity is not synonymous with ownership or staying there. So C is incorrect. B, obtain property rights for American Indians. Property rights is a synonym for legal title. So those are the same thing. So here is where your understanding and knowledge of words is very critical to reading skills. You have to understand that property rights means having legal claim or legal title to a property. And you have to know that integrity does not necessarily mean being removed or staying on a place. And it does not mean ownership and legal title. So that's where B is correct and C and E are incorrect. Does everybody follow what we're doing here for the main idea? Give me a thumbs up if you understand what we're doing and you see what we're doing and you understand and you're good with it. Let's see a thumbs up for those of you who feel that way. Lorania Livingston, I see your hand. Katie Arcos, I see you. Nevia Travis, I see you. Mr. Gooden, yes, or Ms. Gooden. Thank you. Great. Now we're going to transition. So we've talked about the first of the two big ideas, which is what is it about? What is it? That's the main idea. Now we're going to talk about the second big idea that you need to capture for today, which is where is it going? What is the flow of ideas? Not just what is this about, but what is this about and where is the idea going? Where are the thought processes leading to? What is it? We're going from point A to point B to point C to point D, or in this graphic, point 1 to point 2 to point 3 to point 4. Where are we headed? That's what we now need to incorporate in our summaries. Let's go. Let's give it a practice shot, right? I said we would not only learn, but we would practice. Now's the time to do it. Let's say you're taking a class on British literature. And in that class, who would be more famous than William Shakespeare himself? So there's a chapter in your textbook about Shakespeare. And here's how it starts, or maybe this is the middle of it. And you are taking notes and you're summarizing as you go. And you hit this passage and you summarize this passage. I will read it out loud for those of you who are on a phone and have a hard time reading the text. Here we go. Shakespeare wrote 4 types of plays: histories, comedies, tragedies, and tragicomedies. Some scholars contend that Shakespeare's choice of 3 of these types of dramatic forms reflects his various psychological states. As a young man, making a name for himself in London, he wrote comedies. Then, saddened by the death of his son, he turned to tragedies. Finally, seasoned by life's joys and sorrows, he produced tragicomedies. But a look at the theater scene of his day reveals that Shakespeare was not so much writing out of his heart as into his pocketbook. When comedies were the vogue, he wrote comedies. When tragedies were the rage, he wrote tragedies. And when tragicomedies dominated the stage, he produced tragicomedies. All right, what is the 10-word summary? Keeping in mind the flow. So I need you to now, you know what to do. You summarize, you paraphrase, you get the main idea, you use a maximum of 10 words. They have to be your own words. But now ask yourself, where is this going? What's the flow within the passage? Incorporate that into your summary. So we've got a few people putting in your summaries. Thank you for doing that. Christian Reynolds, you're #1. Good job. Shakespeare was very flexible as a playwright. It is believed that some plays he wrote revealed what mental state he was in. So you talk about the mentality. All right, Christopher Baldwin says Shakespeare wrote to satisfy the audience at the time. That's very good. You're getting to the core idea. But where is the movement? Where is the flow? Talk to me about flow. It goes from what to what? So Deja Booski says Shakespeare let his emotions and experience write his plays. So there is a talk about emotions. Whatever he was feeling, he wrote, Eileen Arcos says. Shakespeare's always been a good genre, pretty normal, but it changed because of what he was going through mentally and in his life, says Katie Arcos. All right, I see a lot of things that talk about feelings and emotions. So now is the time for truth. The truth is the emotions were not part of what he did. That's a hard pill to swallow, right? Because half of the passage talks about his emotions, right? But that's only the first half. Remember what I said, pay attention to flow. The second half indicates where we're going. Again, the second half indicates where we're going. And here I outlined 4 keywords for you. The word but, which means everything that just came before, I'm about to contradict. The word not, the word heart, and the word pocketbook. So let me read that passage again, just that one bit. Shakespeare, this is towards the very end of the passage. Shakespeare was not so much writing out of his heart as into his pocketbook. So it was not the heart, but rather the money, right? Not heart, yes, pocketbook. So he wrote what was popular at the time and that people would pay to see, not based on his feelings and experiences. So for those of you who your summary was all about his feelings, you only got it half right, which is the same as, of course, being incorrect. So you've got to be careful to incorporate that flow of ideas better. This is all, of course, a work in progress. You've just seen this. So now it's good to work on it, refine it, and get better and get stronger at it. So again, he wrote what was popular at the time, also known as what paid the bills, not his feelings and experiences. So now that you see the correct way to look at this passage, let's pretend there's a quiz like we always do, and let's see what you might think is the right answer. Is the primary purpose of this passage to A, examine Shakespeare's life in light of his dramatic works, B, contest a theory that attempts to explain why Shakespeare wrote the kinds of plays he did, C, explain the terms comedy, tragedy, and tragicomedy as they are used in discussions of Shakespeare's plays, D, compare Shakespeare's plays with the works of other dramatists of his day, or finally, E, discuss what is known about Shakespeare's psychological states. Put in your answer in the chat line now, please. I'm getting a lot of B answers. A lot of Bs. Okay, good. So it looks like you all understood the exercise. Now that you see my write-up of the summary, I think it's quite clear that B is correct, right? Because there was a theory. It was a wrong theory, but there was a theory. And that wrong theory was that he wrote about based on his feelings. But the right theory, the one that contests it, is that he wrote based on what was popular and paid the bills, right? It was all about that dollar. He had to get paid. He didn't care so much about the feelings. The real reason was based on the money. All right, so let's do one last one. I need you to focus in, buckle down. This is our last example. Let's get to it. Let's work hard. Let's not be lazy. Let's focus. Let's say you're taking a class on art history. Here's a passage that you might read about art history. I will begin now. Art teacher Marian Richardson, 1892 to 1946, has often been considered part of the free expression school of thought. But that is a misinterpretation of her teaching practices. She did believe that art is a means of expression and that everyone is capable of artistic expression in some way. However, she also believed that it is important to develop technical mastery. She often took her students on beauty hunts, emphasizing that art had to be felt and experienced, but she also had them do color mixing exercises which is something the free expression teachers would never have done. I'm going to give you a little bit of help as you create your 10-word summaries. I circled 3 words for you to give you an example of the flow of ideas. Watch out. Watch out for the but. Watch out for the however. And watch out for the other but. So now I want you to come up with your 10-word summary or less. Go ahead and put it in the chat line now. Nevia Travis says she had different beliefs on art. Yes, you're getting that sense of different. Jordan Graham, she was introducing her ideas of art. Okay, good. It's a little bit too general. I want you to be a little bit more specific. What else y'all got? All right, great. Well, this has been good. You guys are seeing some things. I'm going to give you a little bit more information. So now I'm going to show you a few more ideas that you need to think about. When you're summarizing a passage, it's always good to see what the core content is, right? These specialized words that you don't see every day. Those specialized words are important. Are they a detail? Yes. But sometimes you need to grab the core ideas that are content details and incorporate it in your summary, in your main idea, because it's that important. And I'll show you 2 ways. One way is to do it without those core ideas, and another is to do it with. I'll show you both. But right now I want to emphasize to you that you better have seen these key ideas popping out at you. It's what I've circled in blue. Number 1, the idea that she is a free expressionist, like the idea of free expression. That's a key word. The second idea is this idea of technical mastery. That's very much a key word or words of this passage. The third key word or idea is color mixing, right? These are very specialized words, very unique words that really should catch your eye. The best kind of summary will have incorporated 1 or maybe even 2 of these ideas. And this is a way to incorporate some of the specifics, the details. Only the ones that are extremely relevant to the main idea of the passage should be included. But I do believe these are important enough to include. So how would this work? Well, you might want to just talk yourself through what's happening. That's another technique. Where is this going? Let's track the flow. First of all, Richardson was not just a free expressionist. That's the first idea. The second idea I see is that one also needs technical mastery, more than just free expression, right? Idea number 3, an example of this is that she had her students do color mixing. So now, if we were not just doing the main idea, but if you were, again, in your textbook, trying to create an outline, you might come up with these 3 bullet points about this section of the text, right? The 3 that I just read off to you, that you can see on your screen. That might be 3 key bullets. So that might be an option for you to do. However, of course, I have asked you to do a summary of 10 words or less. That's what I'm going to show you now. I'm going to show you 2 ways to give you both flavors. The first flavor is with the key words that I talked about. So the first one says, as art teacher, Richardson balanced free expression with technical mastery. You notice how I have both of those keywords in there, free expression and technical mastery? That is a good way of creating a summary with the key ideas in it. Now, again, I'll show you another way that incorporates none of those key ideas, and it's still perfectly acceptable. That would be the last yellow line I show you here on the slide. Richardson wasn't exactly the art teacher we thought she was. Notice I haven't used any keywords, but the core main idea is still captured in what I wrote. Personally, I prefer you go with the first, but the second one is fine as well. All right, let's look at what a possible quiz question might look like. It might be the following. The primary purpose of the passage is to A, call into question the criteria used to classify art teachers. B, challenge a common view of a particular art teacher. C, emphasize the importance of technical mastery in art education. D, criticize the teaching practices of free expression teachers. Or E, demonstrate the value of having exposure to art education. Which of those options do you think is right? Go ahead and put it in the chat line now. I'm hearing some C, I'm hearing some B. Those are good answer choices. I'm seeing a lot of C's now, a ton of C's. All right, I am going to give all of y'all a second chance. How many times do we get that in life, right? If you had an instructor who said, okay, answer this question. Oh, no, actually that answer that you gave me is incorrect. I'm gonna let you try again. That never happens, but I'm gonna have that happen for you today. I'm giving you a second chance. C is incorrect. Find a different answer choice. I'm seeing a lot of D's, I'm seeing a lot of B's. So B like boy and D like dog are now the top vote getters. All right, let me stop you there and let's talk about it. First, let's talk about why C is incorrect. C says, emphasize the importance of technical mastery in art education. Well, the reason why C is incorrect is it does have the word technical mastery. That's good, but you have to look at the whole answer, not just part. And the whole answer talks about the importance of technical mastery in art education. Is this passage really about art education in general? Or is it about a specific art teacher? I'm going to look at my own summary. My first summary says, as art teacher, Richardson, ... So right from the get-go, my summary shows that C is incorrect. Let me look at my second summary. Richardson, again, a specific person, wasn't exactly the art teacher, again, specific person, we thought she was. So my entire summary for option 2 is in fact about a person, not about art education in general. So C is wrong. It is incorrect. Now I want to talk about B and D. Those are the two that y'all thought might be the right answer. B says challenge a common view of the particular art teacher. And D says criticize the teaching practices of free expression teachers. I'm going to look at D first. Are we truly criticizing in this passage? Not really. There's not really criticism. There's a discussion about how she kind of changed her stance and how she's balancing what she does, but it's not a criticism. Also, it's not about all free expression teachers. It's not about free expression in general. It is about a specific teacher. So D is incorrect. B talks about a particular art teacher, which is true. And it talks about a common view, which is that she's a free expressionist. That's true. And it talks about challenging that view, which is also true, because it then talks about the flow of the passage, talks about she goes into technical mastery and this color mixing. That's all challenging her free expression roots. So the answer is B like boy. Well, again, the key is that you tried. Doesn't matter if you got it right or wrong, it really does not. But what matters is you tried. What matters is you put in an answer choice. I commend you, I applaud you, I congratulate you for doing it, because you don't learn until you try. Thanks for doing that. Let me go back to the beginning. We talked about note-taking while reading in 3 ways, and I did say that the core way that we're going to study today was that second one, doing the outlining. We've done kind of a pretend style, an example of parts of what you might do in reality. But in reality, if you're reading a chapter of a textbook, you would actually have all of your summaries together in one document, building and creating a complete outline of the whole chapter. So as you summarize each paragraph, as you summarize each section, you're getting these 3 to 10 words over and over about different sections. And collectively together, they will form, say, 20 summaries that basically encompass the entire chapter. That's what we're doing here, is taking the ideas of what we've learned, and then if you were to apply it to your reading, that's how you would apply it. Everybody following me? All right, let's review what to do when reading. The first thing is to look for what is it? What is the main idea, right? The second one that I told you about is look for where is it going? What is the flow of ideas? The third idea is do active reading. Stay engaged. Remember, we talked about the different methods for doing that and how it relates to 2 weeks ago, right? When I talked about finding a separate space for work and play, when I talked about finding your high energy moments. And today, when I'm talking about visualizing, these are all techniques to stay actively engaged in the reading. Fourth, summarize, right? We've talked about that a lot. You've practiced now to have a maximum of 10 words. Some of you are using too many words. I'm seeing 15, 20 word summaries. Keep it tight, short and sweet. That's the only way you can crank this out quickly, because you don't have a lot of time, right? You want to do it as quickly as possible. Try not to word it too verbosely. Paraphrase. Always use your own words. That's a form of active reading. To just use the words in the passage is kind of like taking the lazy way out. You need to use your own words, and that will help you stay engaged in what you're reading about. Visualize whenever possible. It's going to put you in the mood. It's going to put you in the moment. It's going to immerse you in the text. It's going to immerse you in the ideas, because you feel like you're there in the jazz club, or you're there on the Native American frontier, on the Native American territories. All right, visualize, close your eyes for a few seconds and imagine yourself in the text. Finally, I mentioned this very last, together all of your written summaries will form an outline, and then your job will be to review it consistently and constantly. Every day, review your 23 to 10 word summaries of that chapter, and that will just refresh and remind you of all the critical key ideas in that chapter. Is this making sense to everybody? Let me get a thumbs up if you feel like this was helpful to you, if you feel like you got some good ideas out of this session. Who here feels like, yeah, that made sense to me? Give me a thumbs up with your emoji. All right, I see your thumbs up. Thank you. Anyone else? Yep. Good, good. Maya Campbell, I see you. Katie Arcos, thank you. Brianna Simpson, I see your thumbs up, thank you. All right, great. Well, this is just the beginning. This is not the end, right? What we've talked about can propel you, can help you in everything you do if you apply it from now on in your studies, but you have to apply it. Take this as a beginning and use it for everything you do in reading in the future, and you will find it to be a massive help for you. So with that, thank you very much. Here is a quick survey. I am going to put the survey link. There's a QR code, obviously, which you can scan with your phone, but I'm also going to type in the chat line, which I've now posted. So you can click on the link in the chat line if you're on a laptop, and that will bring you to the survey. It's so short, it's like 5 questions, so short. Please answer it quickly now. And again, my name is James Powell. Thank you so much for joining me for this reading skills workshop. I appreciate you very much. And now I'm going to open it up for questions. Let me know if you've got any questions. Go ahead and unmute. I'd be happy to answer them for you.